Hey guys, so in this one we're going to look at Allies. Allies is a new introduction to 6th edition, which allows you that once you reach, we think it's 2,000 points, you could field an army that's made up of 2 armies.
Yeah.
Can you do 3?
No, unfortunately you can't have a 3-way, it's just 2.
We always prefer a 3-way.
Well.
Anyway, so you could field an army based up of 2 of the factions. So for example, Tau and Orcs or something like that. It opens up a massive amount of possibilities. So in this video, we're going to take a slightly closer look just at the general concepts of it all, but it's going to take weeks to really get to grips with this. And we're going to be doing, I'm sure we're going to be doing tons of videos. Some looking at the narrative aspects, what it's going to make for awesome looking games and awesome fun games. But I have no doubt we're going to be looking for cheese and gap fillers in this as well.
I'm sure somebody's going to send us in some nice allied army lists as well that we could possibly get a look at in the future.
This to me is the best thing in the book.
Yeah.
For me personally.
I thought this was your department.
Yeah, you knew that I was going to love this. Yeah. And it's something I've been crying for the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
It all started whenever my Space Marine army, you've never actually seen it in any videos and whatnot because it's a very, very long-term project, is the Sons of Aeon, okay? They are my own custom chapter, and I've made them up completely from scratch, okay? I've made up their own background, and I've just been slowly chipping away at it, and they have, they sit outside of the core 40K fluff. So I have them being created during the Siege of Terra, or just before that, to go out and basically find other stuff deep into the galaxy. And they're basically separate of everything else. And what I did at the time was I created this kind of fluff around them where they had been made up of kind of gene seed from a number of chapters. Just that they were experimenting while all the other chapters were about the purity of their gene seed. These guys were more about mongrels, kind of mongrels.
Mixtures.
And they basically, they had no planet or anything, all they had was a massive fleet with a capital ship called Aeon. And all I ever wanted was to be able to have the flexibility to play that army with different codexes and things like that there, to try stuff out and to buy other bits and pieces that as it came out that I just thought it was cool and I could paint it copper. And I always wanted to have it that it had its own guard contingent attached to it.
Yeah.
And I'd often said to these guys, I just so much want to play a game where I have my Imperial Guard guys at the front trundling along, and then my Space Marines coming in behind it.
Or all deep striking on the head of them.
Deep and in strike. And I just love the imagery of it. We were able to kind of half play it, but you never really play a lot of that stuff because it's never in the core rules. And you know, he's a tournament player, and a lot of the guys here love playing competitively and stuff like that. And you just always wished that something like that was in the core book.
I liked the new Space Wolf book, but one of the things I couldn't understand is why they took the Lehman Russ tank out of it.
Yes.
It's never of great amount of use because Longfangs and things did a better job, but it's just nice to have the option to have a few Lehman Russ tanks.
Is the Primarch.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
It should have been there.
I want to have a nice row of Lehman Russ tanks at the back. The little ridiculous scarabs will come along and eat them, but at least you had your Lehman Russ tanks. The little guardsmen turned up to do their bit.
And you know, like I don't know about you guys, but I have a Stormlord painted copper just to match my Sons of Aeon with Space Marines as if they've commandeered this Stormlord and are just shooting all the guns off the back of it and stuff like that as well. You know, it's always for me being about, you know, just exploring it where I wanted to take it. Allies, I feel, opens that.
Yeah.
It opens the ability for us to explore different kinds of armies. It opens the ability for us that if we see a cool model in another one of the armies, we can go out and buy it.
One of the things I liked of the last year was as soon as the Grey Knight Dread Knight came out, straight away it was converted into Orcs.
Yes.
Straight away it was converted into Orcs. As soon as it came out, I loved that. We were chatting about this previously about how some of the armies weren't particularly strong. And we looked at it and went, Tau can go with Orcs. Seemed to have a big blob of Orc boys just protecting all your Tau shooting.
Yeah.
Which Tau really need.
This is taking it
You know.
slightly away from the narrative and looking at the gap filling.
Yeah.
There are armies out there where for Tau, for example, where you've always said, oh, I wish I had more close combat in that Tau to slow down the offensive, to let my Tau shots count better. Well, now you can, because looking at Tau, right, Tau can partner with their allies of convenience with Black Templars. So there's Termies could come in, Blood Angels, more Termies and stuff like that. So your Terminators.
Fast jump pack guys.
They can armies of convenience with Chaos Space Marines, with normal Space Marines and Dark Angels. The Tau
almost
actually,
everybody.
yeah, they have and they're battle brothers with the Eldar. So Tau and Eldar just fit very, very nicely together, and they're also battle brothers with the Space Marines themselves. So there's no reason why you couldn't have a Tau army and have a chapter of Space Marines done up in Tau-esque type colors.
Yeah.
You know, it's a lost Space Marine chapter that has been kind of indoctrinated into the greater good, perhaps.
Yeah.
And suddenly you have access to a whole lot of close combat.
Yeah, exactly. What Tau we always felt with Tau is, as soon as a fast army got to them, they were stuck. They were stuck into combat that they could never win, and challenges and things now make it even harder for Tau. Now at least you can buy some of them cheap little units, maybe ally with Sisters of Battle to get some Death Cult Assassins, some real fierce combat there that's quite cheap. Or with Grey Knights get Death Cult Assassins. It's quite cheap, good combat that you can get into your army. And
now, on the topic of Sisters of Battle, they're desperate allies.
Yeah.
Now, desperate allies, let's talk a little bit about the mechanics of this, Darrell, okay? Desperate allies, this category covers alliances forged only through the direst need, by partners whose only shared ground is the abhorrence they feel for one another. Indeed, when desperate alliance occurs, it is almost certainly built on deception. Such alliances are prone to collapsing at the most inconvenient moments. Those that do go to term invariably end with the messy deaths of one party or another, either at the hands of their erstwhile allies or outside forces who judge them traitor for their deeds. Desperate allies are treated exactly like allies of convenience. Furthermore, if your primary detachment is in a desperate alliance, units from that allied detachment are non-scoring, non-denial units. In addition, the one eye open special rule applies. Now,
this is good.
The one eye open special rule, at the start of each of your movement phases, each of your units within 6 inches of a desperate ally unit must roll a d6. On the roll of a 1, that unit cannot move, shoot, run, or assault that turn. They're too busy watching for betrayal.
Exactly. Is that not fluff? Is that not
that is
thematic?
Yeah, it feels a bit like orcs in fantasy, where they're rolling for animosity and stuff like that there. It's cool. It is cool.
It is cool. You can have, I personally don't see any advantage in having allies like that. There's nobody that good that would want that badly, but it means that if you have two completely disparate armies, you still have that opportunity to go, I'll have my Sisters of Battle along with my Tau, even though nobody really likes each other, but you can have them in there. You know?
So there are these 4 options. So every army has basically one of 4 types of relationship with the other. They can be battle brothers, which has its own benefits. Battle brothers are treated as friendly units from all points of view. This means, for example, that battle brothers can, 1, be joined by allied independent characters. That's cool. 2, are counted as being friendly units for the targeting of psychic powers, abilities, and so on. So
it means you can buff your guys locally to you.
However, note that not even battle brothers can embark in allied transport vehicles.
It stops you putting, let's say, like a Space Marine character in with some Blood Angels in a transport and drive them across the board.
So that's going to scupper you if you think you're going to put guardsmen in a drop pod or something like that.
It does.
Would have been awesome.
It does scupper you, but it does mean that you could put like a Space Marine with a Blood Angel in reserve to all deep strike down together.
Yeah. So it's. I don't think that's too big a deal. You know, if you're going to have your guardsmen and stuff like that fronting up your Imperial Guard army or basilisks in the back line or something like that, they're going to be a separate detachment anyway. So it's
exactly that's the best of the allies.
Allies of convenient units in your army treat allies of convenience as enemy units that cannot be charged, shot, targeted with psychic powers or have templates or blast markers placed over them. However, if a psychic power, scattering blast weapon, or other ability that affects an area hits some of the allies of convenience, they will be affected along with any friendly or enemy units. This means that, for example, allies of convenience units can't benefit from the Warlord trait of an allied character. Can you describe that?
Warlord trait is a trait like counterattack or something along them lines, or heroic inspirational presence where they get to use his leadership if he's within range. Can't benefit from any of that.
They cannot be joined by an allied independent characters, so you can't get your Belial and stick him into a unit of guard or something like that. No. And are not counted as friendly units for the targeting of psychic powers, so you can't buff them with your psychic powers.
Can't buff them. It just is basically two separate armies fighting together.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Two separate armies, the enemy of my enemy and all that there nonsense, fighting together. That's basically what it is. It gives you that chance to have, you know, I think it's Space Wolves and Dark Angels are both Marines, but they don't really like each other. There's no animosity there. It means you can have both of them on the board, but they'll basically fight along by themselves.
They're not gonna be particularly cooperative or gel as an army. So the kinds of things that you're looking at here, guys, you can do awesome last stand type scenarios where you could have NIDs, and I think there should be a rule where every NID player gets an extra 25% points to spend because of the lack of awesomeness that NIDs are feeling in this edition of the rules. But you could have NIDs versus Blood Angels and Necrons. So there's your kind of last stand scenarios. You could also use it from a tactic or a strategic point of view if you're a Tau player and decide, well, do you know, I'm going to take some Space Marines or some Orcs to act as a buffer line, give my shooting more time to take effect. You know, it's a valid point.
I think of anybody, it helps Tau. It really helps Tau.
Or you could use it for just the awesome sauce of having your Space Marine army with a back line of basilisks, or manticores, or a front line of some guardsmen in tanks. If you're Space Wolves, you could use it to get your Leman Russ and stuff like that back into the army.
I want my Leman Russ.
So it's almost too awesome. It is almost too awesome. It really is.
The fourth one in the chart we forgot to mention is we just don't ally.
Yes, sorry, the fourth one is you don't ally.
We just don't ally. Chaos never ally with any of the Marines.
Yeah.
They don't. That's the fourth one. But yes, it gives you the chance. And see it there, I always wanted Death Cult Assassins. I'm going to get some now. You know, it gives you that there. Some of them units you always wanted. Maybe you wanted, I know, Jump Pack Blood Angels. If you can ally with them, you have them.
Now, what are the mechanics of setting up an army with allies in Darrell? Each of the allies needs to have an HQ unit and one unit of troops.
Yes, you have to, once you actually decide on who your ally is going to be from your main force, you have to buy an HQ, you have to buy a unit of troops. This is the downside to it, because you can't just go out and buy that funky unit you wanted. You can't just go out and go, I'll have some Thunderwolf cavalry.
Yeah,
because you'd have to buy...
I'll have a Land Raider, or I'll have one of the Flyers or something like that, a Vendetta.
I can't go out and say, I'll have a Storm Raven.
Yeah.
Because I'd have to buy an HQ and a unit of troops. Some of the armies, it's easy. I'm sure for Imperial Guard, you can get a little cheap HQ, a tiny little cheap unit of troops. You know, even for the likes of Grey Knights, you can get a little cheap Inquisitor and a tiny little unit of troops at 12 points. You can. That's great. But for a lot of the Marine armies, you're going to have to buy an HQ at 100 points, or probably 100 points worth of troops to get something else. It has balanced it, so you can't just pick out the stuff you want unless you can pick out a good unit of troops. Like Plague Marines, Tyranids, or Genestealers, but you can't get them because nobody likes NIDs.
Obliterators.
Obliterators or heavies. You can't get for me, the best way to use this is to get a good HQ and a good unit of troops.
Well, a good HQ and a good unit of troops are never going to be wasted anyway, because any extra unit of troops, remember, troops are scoring units.
Yes, exactly.
So if you're playing the game, you'll always find a use for some troops, whether it's seizing an objective, holding an objective, or doing something.
One of them huge big blobs of like 100 guardsmen you can get.
Yeah.
That, for any Space Marine player, that could be so handy. They have that just blobbed across 3 objectives around the board, and you're never going to shoot that down.
Yeah, let's think how long it would take to clear that. You know,
you're never going to shoot. Even in combat, it's going to take you forever with Commissars in there make them all stubborn on 10 and all that there. You're never going to move that. Things like that there work really well, but as I said, if you want to get the big combat, like if you want Necron Wraiths, you're going to have to buy a Lord, a unit of troops before you can get the Wraiths.
Yeah.
Or Scarabs. I'd love some Scarabs. I can get Scarabs from my Space Wolf army now. I can get my Scarabs back. The only thing I miss from my Necron army, a pile of Scarabs in my Space Wolf army.
Well, do you know what, Darrell? Darrell's very confident there. I'm just going to check that, actually. So, Space Wolves, this is the chart. I've been complaining about the chart.
It's not pretty by any means.
The chart is atrocious, guys. You know, when you're doing all these lovely fold-out things, you could have done a fold-out of that chart that would have made it so much easier to read.
Even just a little list. Space Marines.
So, Space Wolves down to Necrons or Desperate Allies.
Yeah, so I can have my Scarabs.
It can be done.
Yes.
Yeah. I suppose Space Marines, Imperial Guard, they're the ones that have the most allies and the most in terms of Battle Brothers.
They have the most in terms of Battle Brothers. I think Tau have the most allies because they'll ally with almost everybody. But Space Marines and Imperial Guard, because I suppose that's all that Imperium, and they're really the core of the Imperium, from what little fluff I know.
Yeah.
They can have the most, so you will have the most options with them. Down to the Chaos Marines and the Chaos Demons don't have Battle Brothers bar each other, you know, and I think Dark Eldar. But depending on who you play, it basically depends on how much. And for me, it really has to be Battle Brothers are probably going to be your best option for this.
Yeah, it would seem to me that you'll probably want to try and find a Battle Brother or an ally of convenience, probably at the most. After that there, you're going to be into the luck of the roll, and the armies are going to play very separately and stuff like that. You could have a lot of fun with it, though. You really could. So, in a nutshell, guys, summing up at this stage of our look through the book, Allies is awesome sauce. It's the purest kind of awesome sauce. It's a bit of marketing genius by Games Workshop as well, because it opens us up to buying all sorts of units from all sorts of armies. But you know what? That's no bad thing, because we wanted to do it anyway, guys, let's be honest. So I don't think there's anything cynical in it at all. It can be very narrative. It's going to make for some awesome cinematic type battles. However, we do think that there's cheese to be had there.
There has to be.
At the very least, there's gaps to be filled. So armies like Tau and stuff like that that have struggled in the past, you have something there that you could use right now, today, and have some termies and stuff like that in there. Bear in mind, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care if you call it a Terminator or not. If you decide to model them up that they're big butch Tau close combat units and custom make them but run them with Terminator rules, I'm fine with that.
As long as you can tell what the model is,
Yeah. So you know, it doesn't have to be Terminators. You could use this to create very different flavored armies here. You're just using it as a basis of the rules.
You could say these are Tau Terminator-esque guys that just haven't been seen before.
Yeah, they're some unknown type of Terminator close combat unit.
Or they've turned to the communist side of Tau.
The communist side of Tau. So guys, it is totally awesome. I just can't get over how cool it is or how pleased I am to have that particular aspect in the book. Now, over to you. We're going to be spending weeks looking at this. I'm sure there'll be tons of videos where we're just looking specifically at the allies and stuff like that. But what has caught your fancy, okay? Comment below over here on beastsofwar.com, or if you're watching on YouTube, get your comment below and let us and the community know what has caught your eye. If you were going to use allies, what would you do? Are you going to look at it from a narrative point of view, or have you spotted some cheese there? Or are you just trying to fill some gaps or some weaknesses that you feel you have in your army? For those of you who wouldn't use it, because you just wouldn't, post below why, because we're interested to know if there's any of you guys out there who have the option to use it and just don't. For all you Tyranid players, not a lot we can do about that, I'm afraid. But like I said, we need to start an international petition that all Tyranid players deserve to get an extra 25% points. added on top as a universal Tyranid special rule.
It's not enough.
Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Get the comments below. Let's get in and see what we can dig out of this. Cheers, guys.